storm began earlier than the weather reports predicted. Thick clouds rolled in from the west, swallowing the evening light long before the sun had set. The Wilson family, Mark, Jenna, and their 2 kids, were finishing dinner when the rain started tapping against the windows like restless fingers. At first, it was comforting, a soft rhythm that blended with the warm light of the living room lamps. But the tapping grew louder, heavier, almost impatient. Mark glanced up at the flickering chandelier above the table. He frowned, sensing what was coming. The house let out a long, low hum, and the lights blinked once, and then the entire home fell into darkness. The sudden silence felt thick. Jenna let out a soft breath. Great, power's out. Mark reached for his phone and turned on the flashlight, letting a narrow beam slide across the kitchen counters. The kids moved closer, instinctively huddling near their parents. The storm outside roared louder, shaking the thin window frames. But inside, the house was eerily still. Mark guided everyone to the living room, where they lit 2 candles. The warm glow chased the shadows away, but only barely. Every corner of the house looked deeper, darker. Then something unusual happened. From upstairs, a sound drifted down. A soft, steady movement, not a thud, not a creak of settling wood, but the quiet, distinct sound of footsteps. Jenna's head snapped up immediately. "Did you hear that?" Mark tried to smile. "Probably the old floorboards. Temperature changes always." But the footsteps continued, moving across the hallway above them, one step at a time. Both kids pressed closer to Jenna. Mark raised his flashlight toward the stairs. The thin beam didn't reach far, but it caught the edge of the wooden railing. The house was locked. All the windows were shut. They had checked everything before dinner. No one should be upstairs. Mark whispered, "Stay here," and stood up, gripping the flashlight tightly. He took one step toward the stairs, and the footsteps stopped instantly. The sudden silence made the air feel colder. Mark waited, listening. Then a new sound answered him, a slow scrape, like something being dragged across the floorboards, right above the living room ceiling. Jenna's voice was barely a breath. "Mark, don't go up there." But Mark wasn't listening anymore. His eyes were fixed on the shadow-shrouded staircase, and the way the darkness at the top seemed too thick, too heavy, as if something was standing there, blocking the faint candlelight. He raised the flashlight again. The beam trembled slightly, not because his hand shook, but because something passed through it. For a moment, the light wavered, bending unnaturally around a shape that wasn't there the moment before. Mark stepped back. Jenna grabbed his arm. "We're all downstairs. We're all here. Nobody went up. There's no one else in the house, right?" Before he could answer, the footsteps resumed. But now they were different, faster, heavier, pacing back and forth along the hallway above them, as if something was searching for a way downstairs. Mark managed to force out a whisper. "The doors are locked." Nothing came in, but he didn't sound convinced. Jenna turned toward the front door. "Maybe we should go outside, wait in the car until the power comes back." But the moment she said it, something made a sound at the top of the stairs. A slow, deliberate exhale, like someone standing just out of view, listening to them. Jenna clamped her hand over her mouth. The kids didn't make a sound. Mark lifted the flashlight toward the staircase again, though part of him didn't want to. The beam slid up the steps, reached the landing, and stopped on something that hadn't been there before. Two dark, wet footprints. They led from the hallway toward the top stair, fresh enough that droplets still rolled down the edges. Jenna's voice cracked, but we checked the doors. Nothing is open. Mark felt his throat tighten. Something upstairs whispered, not in words, but in a soft, rhythmic sound like the beginning of breathing. Slow, deep, too close to be imagination. The storm outside crashed against the windows, but the presence upstairs was louder, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Mark forced his voice into something steady. Everyone stay behind me. He stepped toward the staircase, but stopped halfway because the breathing shifted. It didn't sound like it was upstairs anymore. It sounded like it was on the stairs, coming down, one slow step at a time. The candle flames flickered violently, though there was no draft. Mark didn't blink. He didn't dare look away. The footsteps reached the middle of the staircase, then paused. The shadows, they were thicker than before, shaped like a person standing just beyond the light. Jenna whispered, "Mark, don't move." The shape tilted slightly, as if studying him. Then, with a soft sound, like wet feet lifting from wood, another step came down. Mark's fingers tightened around the flashlight until his knuckles turned white. But the moment he raised it a little higher, the flashlight flickered, dimmed, and died. The candles blew out next. Not a gust of wind, not an accident. They went out all at once, as if someone leaned close and whispered a breath across every flame. The house plunged into absolute darkness, and in that darkness, impossibly close, a quiet, calm voice breathed against Mark's ear. "You locked every door, but I was already inside." The storm roared outside, lightning flashing against the windows for a split second, just long enough to show Mark that the shape standing inches from him was not human, and it had been waiting in the dark long before the power went out.